Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Munson Steed, your host with my co-host, Terry Shropshire. Good evening, Terry.
What's happening?
Well, you tell me what's happening, Terry. The cities around the country are now burning, baby, burning. What does this give you the light of? What year do you think we're in?
um, it seems like the year '68, where there was so much volatile situation going on. Probably the most volatile and violent year of the most violent decade in the century, at least on American soil. And yeah, it just gives me a sense that something is happening. It's like something is brewing underneath the surface, and that changes are coming, but change never comes silently. Sometimes it comes violently. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but change is a coming because it's untenable the way it is right now. And people are across the country. As I look up and see Los Angeles, um, as I see they're showing DC, a lot of cities are burning, a lot of people are hurting, and they want answers. But no, they don't want answers. They're demanding answers, and so there's a lot of unrest. But there's also a lot of peculiar behavior by people getting arrested from out of town. So there's protesters mixed in with anarchists or people who are what we might call agent provocateurs. So we might want to talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, that's what the year. To answer your question, is this seems like the year '68. That was the year RFK died, MLK died, and it was all the ruckus and destruction at the Democratic National Convention that year, and that's when yeah, there was just a lot going on. So it seems like a lot going on this right now.
It appears that Rodney King and the spirit of Rodney King, to some degree, has found its home in all of these cities. We've seen it. That
Yeah,
was
1992. Yeah, 1992. Yeah.
1992.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it reminds me of that as well. It reminds me of.
There are cautionary tales for these individuals, and we have Dr. Kenyatta Stevens coming on to share with us just exactly what we should be aware of for those family members who are taking individuals in that were once on the street. Welcome, Dr. Stevens.
Hi.
We've seen the behavior of that community and our young people, some masked, some without masks. This is that moment. I don't want us to forget we have a injustice pandemic going on, but it seems to have been going on for 400 years. And now we have a pandemic mixed with a rebellion.
Right. And that's the larger problem, because even with all of the angst and everything that's going on right now in Atlanta, where I am, and the rest of the country, we're still facing a pandemic, and it appears that the protesters and everyone else has seemed to have forgotten that COVID-19 is still here. It hasn't left us. I see no mask. There's no social distancing. The police are throwing people into buses and police cars packed together without masks. And so what we're going to see in the next 2 weeks is probably almost a twofold increase in deaths across the nation. And in specific cities, you're going to see a peak in cases of COVID-19.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, and to think about it is most disturbing. I'm glad you brought that up about people forgetting about COVID-19. Is also what has also been lost is that, and Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms of Atlanta mentioned that at a press conference that just went off, is that what's been lost is George Floyd. Like they spend so much time talking about the destruction here and the anarchy there, and are people coming in from out of town and who's doing what and who's right and who's wrong, that George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and in Louisville, Kentucky with Breonna Taylor, those names have been lost. So, but this is what the enemy wants, is to create that type of discord and anarchy by which that becomes the prevailing theme and narrative, and not the reason why we are assembling today across the country.
I think that message was lost on Thursday, because looking at all of the footage from CNN and other media outlets, and just looking at live footage from people that I know that were actually in the midst of these protests all over the country, I didn't see any signs. It was Black Lives Matters. It was, no justice, no peace. But the main purpose for gathering was lost. And then it just turned into, this is how I get my frustrations out. Because the looting and burning.
We've got 3 police officers that are still free, eating chicken, watching the party that is going on in these cities. This is a party. This is a social party that is entertaining those who want to see images of us looting, when they're the looters, when they're the actual taggers. These are continued preparation of fraud to discount why there is an uprising, not a riot, an uprising in our community.
Yeah, there seems to be an insurrection going on because of the fact that their frustrations is coming from multiple directions. And so you have, like you were talking about the the looting, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and the Los Angeles Lakers are looting the money that was supposed to go to business or small business owners. Absolutely. And it never got to them, and it went to the Los Angeles Lakers. And how did they get that money? How did Ruth's Steakhouse? I mean, that's just ridiculous. So you add on to that the unemployment, you add on to that the lack of jobs, you add on to that the comorbidity that makes you more susceptible, particularly susceptible to the COVID-19. And you put all that together, that in itself is a Molotov cocktail. That's a metaphorical Molotov cocktail, and it has exploded this past week. So yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Steve, that you brought up.
Exactly, and that's the main message that I've actually been sharing with others too, is that when you have unemployment rates that are skyrocketing, so you have people that are unemployed, they don't know when they're going to go back to work or if they'll go back to work. So they can do anything right now, because a lot of people are like, well, no, I can't do anything that'll get me arrested because I have a job. So when you throw that out the window, and then you add to that all of the frustrations that have been compiled, being stuck in the house due to COVID-19, they're hearing reports that Black and brown people are dying because of COVID-19. They can't do anything about that because we don't know anything about this virus. And then you add everything that has happened this week, it was gonna explode. And that's what you're seeing now. It's a group of people with nothing to lose. And that's the most dangerous group of people that you can ever encounter.
And then you throw on the kerosene with the inflammatory language that if you loot, we shoot. I mean, yes. What? I mean, what? I mean, so you have someone in the most powerful position in the world telling only part of his citizens that we're going to protect you, and then telling the rest of the citizens, we don't care what brought you to this point. We don't care why you're out in the streets. We don't care why you're hurting. All we know is if you loot, we shoot. And that is not the kind of language that you put out there when people are already on the edge and ready to explode at anything. It's, they're already on edge. So they don't need anything else to spark them. They're already sparked.
Nothing. I mean, they were already trigger happy just leaving their homes. Like they don't want to be home. They want to be in the streets. They're getting half messages and half truths. And then when you add in those people who have been planted to incite additional violence and provoking them to burn down buildings and loot, then this is what you get. And they don't realize that you're on Facebook Live filming from your area where you are, and that they're tracking all of that. And then they're gonna pull that data, and then you're gonna be implicated.
Yes.
And you're helping the federal government and the rest of these, because some of these are federal crimes. You're helping them to identify those people that were there. They have facial recognitions. We've given so much of our personal identifying information to the government, fingerprints, the whole nine. They're going to find these people, and they think that they've gotten away with it now. But in 2 weeks, even a month later, there's really no statute of limitation on this. And that's what's not being said. They think that they're just out here doing this and they're getting away scot-free. And that's not happening.
No. And I wanted to Mr. Steve to talk about, because we talked about that earlier in regards to your cell phone just because you delete it.
No,
You
it's
think that
saved on the servers. When you do Facebook Lives, that's all of that information is saved on Facebook servers, and it's data that can be subpoenaed at the end of the day.
But you've got an entire community that face recognition when you walk in the store, face recognition when you actually are looting the store. They're recording the license plates to your car when you're driving up to the mall.
Absolutely. They're recording your license plates when you go through the intersection. Those cameras aren't just there for fun. I don't know if they realize that. That's what they do. So all of those traffic light cameras, they're not there for people who run lights. They're recording your tag numbers, and they're recording your face when you drive through. So they can match your face, your car with a time of incidence.
Yes, and yeah, there's a lot of people that are going to be getting some knocks at the doors next week.
Absolutely.
And they're not expecting that knock. And so, yes.
But can we do contact tracing? We've got people going in small vehicles. The whole idea of being able to track anyone with COVID-19 right now after they've been placed in a car with another 100 people in a bus in New York City, which just began to go down for this moment. And what happened?
So basically with contact tracing, if someone tests positive, you reach out to the people that they've had contact with 2 days prior to them showing symptoms. So that's how contact tracing works. They don't know these people they've been thrown on top of into a bus with. So how can they give that information? And is New York collecting all of the proper data from these people that they're thrown into a bus? Are they being released? Do they have anything to hold them on? Some people were detained and then released blocks away. But the interaction, the exposure still happened. So there's no tracing for that. And then if they are from another state or another city or wherever, they're taking that right back with them.
Yes, and they are, because once those people get out of jail, like say in Atlanta, for example, Governor Kemp had to admit that 6 of the people that were arrested were from Chicago in Atlanta. Now, what are you doing there? What are you doing there?
Yeah.
Stopping the emergency vehicles and from putting out the fires. And some of those fires, I got to admit, looked like they were these were professional hits. Basically, that's what happened, like professional hits. Hits on the cars, hits on going up there in Buckhead while everybody's downtown, and you up there destroying restaurants and going to get some milk. So it looks like, it was like some professional jobs going on. But the thing about it is that it doesn't matter if they're from out of town or in town. The matter is that the reasoning why we're here today, why you, and Mr. Steve, Publisher Steve, are here on a Saturday evening is because of George Floyd, and because of Ahmaud Arbery, and because of Breonna Taylor, and we could go on and on and on. So I'd like for us to continue here on Rolling Out News to continue to recognize the people and the reason why we're here this evening. And hopefully we didn't lose her, probably temporarily.
No, live here, we're rolling out news this evening, discussing, and we have obviously the issue of an entire community, Terry, across this country. We'll be joined by Keith Strickland, who is a community leader, and Michael Bond, councilman in Atlanta. Gentlemen, we need you to turn on your cameras.
Okay, I'm attempting to now. Here we go.
Welcome to Rolling Out News. Hey Keith, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing, sir?
Well, it's an excellent day for me, excellent for my community. We're experiencing the unanticipated, the rebellion of an entire nation against the killing and the constant loss of our community. We'd also like to welcome Council Member Michael Bond. Michael and his family have served this community forever and ever.
Yes, father's a legend.
And obviously our epidemiologist Everyone here is from Atlanta.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I'm down here right now at one of the protests, and I wanted you guys to be able to see what it's like out here right now. I'm trying to see how to turn my camera around so I can show you this. Okay, here we go. So starting the protest down here right now, but at the same time, I want you guys to see this. They're boarding up the stores down here because they're expecting people to loot. So when you go around the city right now, you'll see this all around the city. They're closing down stores, they're boarding up stuff. And I was at the protest yesterday. I've spoken at several protests today. And I just want you guys to see how things are going right now. Like where they're expecting us to loot.
And that brings up a good point. I would like Councilman Michael Bond to speak on that in regards to the mayor has instituted a mandatory 9 p.m. curfew to try to prevent.
I'm not recording.
To try to prevent some of the things that are going on that took place last night. And if you could speak to what the mayor said and what your position on this is, sir.
Yeah, we just got off a conference call with the mayor about 5:30, 5:45. She's instituted a curfew from 9 p.m. Till about 7 a.m. In the morning. The police chiefs, they've just had a press conference that just concluded probably about 20 minutes ago. They're going to take a zero tolerance for negative activity tonight, much unlike the posture that they were in last night, which was one of restraint. The history of Atlanta, the history of the Atlanta Police Department in recent years has been to accommodate demonstrations as much as possible. But with the incidents of last night, they've changed that policy tonight. People are demanding in all corners of the city that those who are involved in destructive activities be arrested and be held accountable for their actions. And so, yes, you're probably going to see a lot of that that kind of boarding up in some of the business districts where they feel that some of their interests are going to be targeted. I know that one of the concerns is for Target stores because they're headquartered in Minneapolis. They seem to be a target of some of these looters. So you're going to see a focus on some of those strip mall areas or commercial areas where you have those stores in some proximity.
But we also have to have a health concern. It seems very secondary thought from what I can tell. I'm not sure, and it's not necessarily the role of the council to be able to provide health services, but I think the county needs to definitely step in right about now in the state to get these masks out to young people who may not know, but are going to take this disease, this virus, back to their grandparents and parents after they slip back in, since many are unemployed and actually live with loved ones, but they're not aware that they're taking a silent killer home.
Well, no, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I was astonished by how many people, particularly during the peaceful part of the demonstrations, that weren't wearing masks. Of course, there was no social distancing at all, and so this is real, and it's affecting the African American community, of which the crowd was largely African American yesterday and today. More so than any other group. Within my own family, I lost my aunt to COVID-19 the last week of March. I know personally almost 20 people who have died from COVID-19. And so getting masks or people being conscious enough to wear a face covering is a huge concern as people go around and demonstrate who are activists out in the city. You would hope that the activists would be, more conscious and would be asking people not to come unless they did have a mask or some type of facial covering on. But I'm sure we're probably going to see some level of a spike with so many people gathering, and because this is a highly contagious, highly communicable disease. And one, I don't think that young people in general have taken it as serious as they ought. So I'm very concerned about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know in other cities and where I have friends that are on the ground and they're passing out masks and they're making sure that the people that are present are actually being distributed masks that don't have it. So if they see someone walking down the street, they're giving them a mask. There are signs that says, remember social distancing. And so that's like the main thing that we need to have going in Atlanta, because I have yet to see that.
Excuse me, if you don't mind, I'm riding around now because I was looking for the protest. And I just came from Baltimore, Chicago, and DC where we were giving out masks in the community. And I stopped over here and I saw some of the guys who are outside on the street right now. And they were just saying that nobody's bringing them masks, nobody's doing any of those things. And I just want to do you mind telling them what you just told me, sir?
What about being highly communicable?
He's talking to
These are some people who are on the streets right now, across the street from where the protest was last night when it got violent. So I wanted you guys to be able to see that, and I'm sorry to cut you off, that these are people who are out here right now, that nobody's bringing them any kind of protective things like what you guys were just talking about, and they have to deal with this. They don't have anywhere to go. And we have...
Jesus.
This is hard to watch.
Where are you?
Downtown Atlanta.
I'm downtown on the corner of Forsyth and Marietta Street, and this was one block. They just said they heard the police. They heard the shootings last night. 4 shots, you said? He was saying there was 4 shots across the streets, but none of the police came over here to check on them at all.
Wow.
Well, I'm not going to make an excuse for the police, but right around the corner for them is the Gateway Center at 236 Peachtree Street.
And where I'm taking a lot of people to, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't mean to overtalk you. I'm taking people to Gateway myself, and they're turning them around. They're saying that they just have survived numbers.
They're full.
Well, they're probably full, but they're supposed to be distributed masks. We have budgeted. Yeah, the city council budgeted for over, I think it's over $1 million for COVID-19 supplies several weeks ago. So they should, even though they may not be able to remain at Gateway for the night, they still should be able to get a mask.
And that's a good point. And that's not the only place. I mean, there's multiple
homeless
shelters downtown.
Yeah, they should be distributing those masks.
Right, all within close proximity to one another, that they're delivering masks or hand sanitizers or something to help them, deal with this in some capacity.
And that's the word that's not getting out. I have yet to see that myself, and that's what's not happening. There should be signs or something letting people know where they can get masks from, because another caveat to that is a lot of these young people that are out here protesting, they can't afford masks or any of the protective gear that they need. So that's another factor that we have to take into consideration.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up. I just bought this. This was $7. $7.
Yes.
That's $1. It's $1.99 before. It's $1.99 before COVID-19. Now this little thing here is almost empty, and it's $7. Now I got to go back and get another one.
You need to just get you some bleach, Terry, and drink a little bit. Just drink you a little bit. Just drink a little bit.
And guys, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt, but when I was riding back around trying to get to the protest and I saw them, it just happened to be exactly what you guys were talking about. Mm-hmm. The fact that, I agree with the council member. We're doing as much as we can as a city. I've traveled across the country. I caught COVID in New York in January myself. I was in New York and in New Jersey trying to do programs for youth at the very beginning of this. I was hospitalized in February and again in March. So I get it also. When I got back healthy, I got right back out. So I know for a fact that our council member is correct. We're doing as much as we can, but we still have to do more. While we have all of the energy and all of the anger in our community, we had to put strategies behind that, because
absolutely,
if people don't know where to place that energy, then you're going to have more stuff like what we had last night. So I apologize to interrupt, but I just wanted to give a word from the people who are actually out here.
I just want you to put on a mask when you have a word with everybody else you talk to, Keith.
And stay
you know what? I appreciate it. It's right here.
I just don't want you to talk to them without a mask on the next person.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know, when you're passionate and you get an opportunity to give
I know, but we cannot let our guard down right now.
No.
You're the young person that really is making a difference in this community.
That's right. And I wanted to very quickly, and I'm glad you brought that up because it was timely to what Councilman Bond was talking about in regards to the mass situation. But I wanted to have you talk briefly about the atmosphere when you went down there to speak at the rally yesterday, how it was, and then when you thought it turned bad, like what happened? What changed?
Are you speaking to me or
yeah, Mr. Strickland?
So yesterday when I marched and I was in the I'm sorry, I'm gonna take this out while I'm in the car.
Yeah.
But yesterday while we were marching, it was great. I saw students who I had taught and I saw them with their families and everything was going good. I saw a group of white young college students and they had signs that said F the police, F APD, F GSP, which is Georgia State Police Department. So I went over and talked with them about how I understand their anger, I understand where they're coming from, but at the end of the day, we're not going to make change doing that. We're going to make change becoming a part of the system and then being able to bring their voice into the system, right? So I'm sitting there and we're talking and I'm giving them my number and some other activists came up. So we're talking to them about how to, make long-term change. When we saw another group of white people, we were right there by Marietta Street, which at our state bar, which is a couple of blocks over from the CNN Center. We just saw a large number of people start running because that was when somebody started setting fire to the flag or something, and then they started throwing blocks or something like that. But it wasn't our people doing this. It was and I hate to say this because I'm not trying to place blame on one culture or one race, but it was the outside cultures who were trying to help represent and advocate on our behalf. I think because they haven't gone through some of the things that we have, they don't understand how important it is to be nonviolent in these protests. I sent you guys some video clippings from Instagram and some of the other activists who I work with, where you could see while the buildings are being destroyed, it's not one black face in that crowd, right? But the protest was beautiful. It was so much good energy. If you rode down the street and you blow the horn, you just saw fists go up and you saw love. And then out of nowhere, somebody started setting fire to a flag. Somebody started throwing blocks.
Not out of nowhere. We need to stop that right now. We know that the individuals that are starting these fires are coming prepared. They're not coming down. They're coming down to tag inside. We have a tagging culture, but not like that. We haven't been tagging our downtown like that. So we need to stop saying we don't have a clue, Keith. We have a real good clue. Do you have that video, producer, so we can talk about even in Minneapolis, somebody at an AutoZone with a umbrella. We know better. This isn't Atlanta. We are the city of trap music. We understand how to turn up, but that's not us turning up. That's not our way of turning up.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree. Like I said, it was beautiful to see people be able to go down the street, and when you blow your horn, all you see is just like people moving in unison, people understanding and agreeing with each other, right? And while we're sitting there talking, you heard a loud noise, and then you just saw people running straight towards us because, like I said, we were a block or two up from the CNN Center. So it was just this huge crowd, and that's not at all what this was about, like you said.
Right. I think you even had Tamika Mallory, who gave a speech that shared with our community what we should really be thinking. This is a moment of uprising. This isn't a riot, because they want to depict us in a negative way. This is an uprising based on the slaughter, because this isn't a killing. This is a slaughter. This is a slaughter of young people's dreams. This is a slaughter, Terry, of those who've been affected. Brunswick, 2 men and a videographer of a murder. This is heartless. So we can't wait. This is a pandemic of moral proportion for America. This is where we're at. And Michael, your whole legacy and family legacy has been service. SNCC, all of these things, your family's been involved, and here we're seeing this, and the suffering even after your dad committed his entire life to the movement and you've committed your life to the movement, progress has been minuscule. How do we explain this to these kids? That's why they're turned up. You gotta hit your mic.
Hit your mic, Mr. Bond. No, you're still on mute, sir.
Trying
there you go. There you go.
I hear.
Yeah, you got it now. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing actually is a confluence of a lot of things. I think it's the outrage of Black men being murdered at the hands of police. I think it's class warfare, people who've been impoverished and on the margins are acting out or taking this opportunity to act out. I think there are people who want to disrupt peaceful movements, who hate cultures of unity and cultures of progress, that want to come in and be disruptive. And I think what we're going to have to do in the future, those who are activists, those who are demonstrators, have to go back to the old way. You know, I think when we watch documentaries like Eyes on the Prize, or, you know, file footage of marches, you know, and demonstrations from the past, you know, we see those marches, but we don't often see the work that has gone in to make those marches happen. We don't see the precautions that people have taken to maintain
there's an absence of training in our culture, of our culture.
Right. There's an absence of training for a lot of these demonstrators. And what people need to understand is that in those massive crowds of that file footage, those are people who were committed to be nonviolent. There were more people who were involved, but they stayed away on purpose, or they weren't invited to participate because they acknowledged that they could not be nonviolent. They couldn't be restrained. They couldn't take someone spitting in their face or calling them names or waving signs or things at them. So they stayed away and apart. And so if we're going to continue to demonstrate, we need to train our demonstrators to be the same way, to make the same precautions. They had security details around Dr. King, a group called the Deacons, who were armed to protect him. They had marshals along the parade routes or the marching routes to maintain and to watch out for disruption. You know, I would guess that wasn't thought of yesterday. And then, of course, you know, we have to look at our own police department. Now, after the peaceful demonstration concluded, I think it was around 6 o'clock, 6:30, that it was really basically kind of finished. Then the crowd should have been dispersed. People should have been asked to leave and to, you know, go about their business, you know, before something else jumped out, or before those who are disruptors could have infiltrated those who were peaceful.
Do you mind if I jump?
You know, we all have to take lessons from that.
I have a comment that I wanted to make to that, Councilman, and I agree with what you're saying. I hired an attorney this morning myself, out of pocket, to write to advocate for policy change that we can see done. I've consulted for President Obama's administration. I've worked with dozens of governments, and what we're trying to get done is we want to see something where we see more complaints about acts of violence from a police force against people of color than we do against their counterparts. That we want to be able to ask for a board of African Americans to be able to have input and not influence to where they can make a decision, but I'm sorry about that, to be able to have influence on how that's going to be handled with their internal affairs, right? So when you said yesterday, after they did the march, that they should have, and I want you guys to see this. I'm heading to the march right now, and the police are flying by me with their lights on because they're shutting this one down also. We're heading up to the Capitol where they're marching at, and they're flying by me with the lights on to shut this one down too. But my point is we can't ask these young people to come out and to march and then just go home, because these people have so much unrest and so much energy, and we have to give them somewhere to point that energy. We had to give them some kind of strategy and some kind of plan to be able to say, hey, this is the solution moving forward, so your children won't have the same risk that we're trying to make sure you don't have now, right? So I think that is our issue.
The other thing, excuse me, Keith, we're here on Rolling Out News. The other thing is this is not a moment that people who've been pinned up are going to go home after they leave their home.
Exactly.
They've been pinned up for it feels like 90 days, and they're not going to go home. We have to figure out a solution on how do we move or have a staging area where they're welcome, where they're entertained, where they can continue to share both day and night until they're able to feel satisfied that they're heard. Many of these people are looking for a movement. They want to join some kind of movement right now. This is the moment for the movement. There isn't an organized movement currently that they can join. And so then they join the mayhem. So we've got to give them a process by which to process, whether it's a sing kumbaya full day down in the gulch, enough space to fit 20,000 people. We have to begin to anticipate something like that because it's critical. We're going to bring on another young lady who organized the host, Miss Longfoot. How are you? Thank you for joining Rolling Out tonight.
How are you? I'm so happy that you all brought me on. Am I on video or am I just looking? You
Turn
all
on your video. Turn on your video.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Turn on video. It doesn't give me that option.
You're on Zoom, right?
Yep, I'm on Zoom.
You're on your phone?
Yep, it just says mute lower hand. And that's it.
All right, hold on. They're going to turn you on in a minute. This is Zoom Nation, which is exciting. But I think, Keith, you're right. The young people aren't. I think Councilman Bond, in the future, we've got to figure out a place.
Guys, I want you guys to see, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I want you to see this. The police are chasing away people who are standing outside now. Like just people who are standing outside. The police are already coming together to tell them they have to leave. And this is just literally people walking up because the protest is heading this way. And you see they're already out here telling them they can't even stand on this property.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it as well on the television screen, local television stations, as well as CNN. What happened last night, and Councilman Bond can speak on this more, articulate this better than I can, that they're not going to tolerate what happened last night whatsoever. That they've instituted a zero tolerance policy. That if anything gets close to resembling last night, there will be ramifications. So if you could speak to that, sir, for those who might have just joined us.
Yeah, the Atlanta police and their metropolitan partners, they said the press conference tonight that they're going to have a zero tolerance policy for violent activity or non-compliance. And of course, the mayor instituted a curfew at 9 o'clock. But I want to get back quickly to something that Munson and Kevin was saying. You know, after demonstrations in the 60s and 70s, you're right. They didn't just tell people to go home. They had another option for people in the way of activity. In Mobile and in Birmingham, after they demonstrated, they would return back to the 16th Street Church for speeches and rallies, and to allow people to vent, to sing, to get things off their chest. But they removed themselves from where they had demonstrated, and so that's probably what in the future that we're going to need to do here. You're absolutely right. People are pinned up. They've been physically pinned up in their homes for weeks now, a couple of months now. So you have that on top of all of the other historic frustration that people face. So this is time for people to join organizations and to find a way to filter their anger and frustration into something positive. And so, we as responsible adults and those who've been active, we've got to provide a venue for that, whether it's a traditional civil rights organization or if it's something new. We've got to provide that outlet for people.
Sister Longwood, the entire community came together, and we want to applaud you for supporting a rebellion that is recognizing the injustice that the entire race has faced 400 years plus. And now it's come to roost again. Many people don't understand, and I've had to counsel many parents who are over 50 that this is not their moment. This is the moment of a new generation of leadership, and we should encourage them in the traditions, but we should not discourage them from moving in their moment and living their moment. Can you speak to that?
Yes, so a ball was dropped. That's what we're seeing. A ball is dropped. A ball was dropped because in 2012, when Trayvon Martin was murdered, just started seeing a huge amount of people that marched peacefully. Then when Mike Brown was murdered, then we started seeing what we're seeing right now is nothing new that what we've been seeing for a long time. And we have these same conversations of what avenues can we give our youth? What can we do with our youth? But no one is talking to the youth. No one is speaking to the youth. No one, right now we're here on Rolling Out, and shout out to Rolling Out, always being a voice for the people. But the real people that we need to be going to, all of us, we need to be right there downtown Atlanta with the cameras with Rolling Out, doing an impromptu, let's have a conversation and what's really, I'm saying. But the thing is that our people is outraged. Our people of Atlanta is outraged, and it's because of the fact that what we're seeing is not a surprise to me. I'm not from Atlanta. I've been here since 2014. But I've been in the mud and with the streets. I've been in the hoods, from SWATs to the Bluffs, name it, whatever. What we're seeing is the people that have ignored the people, the real people of Atlanta. Mayor Keisha Bottoms, how dare she talk about like she doesn't have the blood on her hands and say, they need to arrest the officers that murdered George Floyd. But Mayor Keisha Bottoms and Chief Erica Shields, you did not arrest the officers that murdered my good friend, protester Oscar Kane. Jimmy Atchison, that was unarmed, that your police department murdered just last year. And we came to the city council peacefully. We marched these streets, took over the streets peacefully. We've done all of that. We was right there. I was out there at, camping out when they was building the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, when they was pushing our people out, elderly people and poor Black people, in order for them to have that Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I sat out there right there with them, and we was peaceful. How many times do we have to continue to be nonviolent and being pushed and abused and moved and killed unarmed by sometimes what I'm seeing here in Atlanta, our own people, where we're like, you know what? In the words of Martin Luther King, what we are seeing right now in Atlanta, Georgia, on our screens, the brothers right there in the neighborhood too, is the voice of the unheard that this city council and the city of Atlanta and the Black elite have ignored and swept under the rug. And just because they did not go and spend $1,000 at their mayor's ball, or just because they did not put money in their donors and all of that stuff, you think that what we're seeing is the real people of Atlanta. And what we also seeing is the youth that the city of Atlanta have ignored, have not given avenues. They've closed down community centers, and the police have come in with renegades. At the rally that we organized yesterday, it was peaceful. It was beautiful. We had 20,000 people at Centennial Park, right across the street. We, as a matter of fact, when the police pushed and picked up a bike and pushed and hit a woman, I've got hit by these bike cops. They literally, they used their bikes as weapons. And the lady just wanted to go, she wanted to get to her car. They picked up that bike and they provoked it. Then they took tear gas, and then people started running. When we saw them running and we had that mic at Centennial Park, we was able to, and it was such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing in that moment that we was able to get everyone not to run, stampede, be still, stand. We're not going to let this police provoke us. Our rally was over. We actually left Centennial Park, cleaned it up, about 45 minutes later, police comes with the people that just wanted to stay around CNN and that whole entire area.
Yes.
They ended up bringing in more militarized police. They left cop cars with no one in it in front of people. You already know they're not in tune with our people.
One of the things, Ms. Longfoot, I don't want us to assume, because I don't want to, we know for a fact, even Melvin Carter, the black mayor in St. Paul, happened to mention that all the people that he had arrested weren't from St. Paul. Now, the insurgents, I understand that there's some issues in our city. I do understand that. I've been here. I don't think the councilman doesn't understand that. But as it relates to peace and our fraudulent suggestion that our people have enough guns to take over some city, or to suggest to youth that they not study up and learn how to protest and in peace, then we're going to defeat the history of our community. I don't want us to ignore the fact that we understand that there's a rebellion happening. So I'm not expecting perfect, but I don't expect my youngsters and my oldsters who know better to run to Gucci to get a purse and get their picture taken. And all of a sudden imagine that they're not gonna be in their mama's house and cause harm when they knock that door down because you thought you were expressing yourself, and in a moment following fools. They now are looting, and all those pictures are going, my babies are gonna be lost. They're not gonna do it this week. They're gonna come next week and knock on those doors. And so it's the looting that affects me the most when it comes to that.
Because I'm sorry, brother. The looting don't affect me the most. You know what affects me the most is us being murdered by police. Us being murdered by police is what affects me the most. The looting we can rebuild. You can't rebuild a life.
We were talking about the protest. So the protest and the murder didn't occur at the same time. So I don't want to mix money. Okay. Don't mix my money.
Okay.
Like with my people, I don't want them to be confused because you're a leader. So if you mix them, then they get confused. I don't want you to volunteer for jail, young hustler. Don't volunteer. I hate shitty crooks. I hate them. I hate shitty crooks. They took your phone number, they got your car license plate, and they shot a picture of you when you knocked on that door and bust that window and took a $2 purse, and now I gotta serve 2 years. So that's my thing. It isn't that I don't hear you. I want you to know I love and respect you. We need more of you, but we cannot condone violence. We cannot condone lack of training. Okay, you know what? Next week, let's have training of 20,000. But let us not encourage those young people who can't hear your voice and get the training necessary, and they fall into these traps, because that's a trap. That is our people, and walking out without a mask is a trap. We have an epidemiologist, Howard graduate, PhD. We don't want our people sick. They already sick.
That's an excellent point. I wanted Dr. Stevens to talk about that because you heard Ms. Lonewood talk, and you heard about the young people who are frustrated and want to do something, be part of, and Councilman Bond talked about young people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. But we also know, Dr. Stevens, that they got to do it safely, that we're not being very smart about it when we're down there in close quarters with no mask. And we find it out every week, it seems like, a new way that this virus gets spread. So why don't you talk to that very briefly about that, about going out and assembling, but being smart.
And that's the critical thing, because as I was looking at the pictures from across the nation, I liken it to our ancestors being brought over on a slave ship and how they were shackled and packed on top of each other. And essentially they're committing suicide at this point with no mask, no social distancing. And they're just out yelling and screaming, expressing more viral particles. 35% of the population is asymptomatic. So they're not going to be coughing. They're not going to be sneezing. You don't know that they're sick. And in 2 to 3 weeks, I guarantee you that a third of that population that was out there protesting will have either died because they didn't realize that it was COVID and they thought they just had a cold, or they're going to be in ICU. And so what is going to happen is that we're going to, again, overburden our hospital systems. Because every day I post on my social media pages, every day, new hospitalizations for COVID-19 is increasing, as well as ICU admissions. And those are two distinct numbers. ICU means you are pretty much on a ventilator. So that's something that they're not even thinking about. Both of your lungs are affected. So now you're out there with tear gas and you're throwing firecrackers and the smoke and all of these other things that are affecting your lungs and predisposing you even more to the virus. And you're not thinking about that because you're thinking about your next move of how you're going to get a bag or some shoes or some other stupid thing that's pretty much going to get you killed when the police come with this warrant or a no-knock warrant because they've identified you and kick your door in, and you're putting your family not just at risk for COVID-19, but for being killed when the police come to your door. So think about that. They need to find a way to de-escalate these emotions. After these peaceful protests are over, they need to strategize for what they're going to do the next day. They don't need to go loot anything. They don't need to burn anything down because that's what they want. These businesses they have insurance. They want you to burn their buildings down because they're not making money anyway. So you're going in here, you're cutting yourself, you're being exposed, you're walking through glass and all this other crazy stuff to get some goods. If you want to hurt them, hurt the store, leave the goods, because guess what? They still have goods to sell, but they would still have to rebuild. You're taking goods that's insured. Now you're making sure that they are eligible for this extra money from the government because you've destroyed their business. So you're not even being smart about that. You're not hurting anybody but yourself at this point. Well, and COVID is just going to take out the rest.
I want Ms. Longworth to know there was another social activist and sister that had a message for looting. And I just want you to understand that there's a kindred spirit for you there in Minneapolis that had a lot to say.
My sister, Tamika Mallory. Shout out to Tamika.
Hello? Something happened? Oh, okay, I see.
Can't hear it.
I can't hear the presentation, but
I think he's gonna get to it again. But Tamika basically had, and I'm gonna wait it out, but she was where you are, Sister Longworth, as it related to how much we care about what happens to stores. That wasn't the concern, and I don't want you to believe that I'm thinking that we're perfect, but I don't want our people to put themselves in harm's way and volunteer for anything, because literally there are insurgents inside our midst. And even unfortunate, and we don't want to say it, there are brothers and sisters who will take a penny or a dime to destroy the fabric of our own community. There are brothers and sisters who will come to our town and destroy our community for a dime, being paid by people that will never.
That white nationalism and that white supremacist mindset over arresting, charging, and helping. The reason why buildings are burning is because this city, this state would prefer preserving that white nationalism and that white supremacist mindset over arresting, charging, and helping to convict 4 officers who killed a black man. That is the reality of what we're dealing with. This is not just a few cops doing things across the country. This is not a good cop versus bad cop situation. This is Ahmaud Arbery being shot down by white men on the streets of Georgia. That's right. Breonna Taylor being killed in her home. This is in New York City, where we were until freedom. We were just in New York fighting the police officers who, in the name of social distancing, were damn near killing black young people on our streets. This is a coordinated activity happening across across this nation. And so we are in a state of emergency. Black people are dying in a state of emergency. We cannot look at this as an isolated incident. The reason why buildings are burning are not just for our brother George Floyd. They're burning down because people here in Minnesota are saying to people in New York, to people in California, to people in Memphis, to people all across this nation, enough is enough. And we are not responsible for the mental illness that has been inflicted upon our people by the American government, institutions, and those people who are in positions of power. I don't give a damn if they burn down Target, because Target should be on the streets with us calling for the justice that our people deserve. Where was AutoZone at the time when Philando Castile was shot in a car, which is what they actually represent? Where were they? So if you are not coming to the people's defense, then don't challenge us when young people and other people who are frustrated and instigated by the people you pay. You are paying instigators to be among our people out there throwing rocks, breaking windows, and burning down buildings.
That's my sister in the movement, Tamika Mallory. Me and her, we are on the front lines all the time, organizing, mobilizing our people. So everything that she said, I 1000% agree with. I think that we're focusing too much on the damage that is being done instead of the problem.
No, that is true. That's true. And I said that at the top of our program of rolling out news.
Sorry, y'all brought me in late.
No, it's cool. It's cool. No, it's cool. We talked about that in terms of the fact that with all of this fracas going on the periphery, in the center, the reason why we're here tonight on a Saturday night, when we could be doing a million other things, is the fact that we are mourning and trying to get meaning out of the death of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and the rest of the people, and including Mr. Cooper in New York in Central Park, who could have been added to that list had he stayed in Central Park when Amy Cooper lied and filed a false police report saying that this bird watcher was threatening her. I've never heard of a threatening bird watcher, but she said she was threatened. So that is why we're here tonight, and that has gotten lost with all of this other stuff. And I think that's part of the point, is to create, disruptions and distractions so that the main issue just never gets addressed. So I didn't know if anybody else wanted to speak to that issue about how the agent provocateurs, that's what I like to call them, people brought in from the outside, people paid to come in and create destruction. They're the one throwing the rocks, starting those fires that look professional, and then they walk away. The governor, Kemp, Ms. Lone Wolf, said that 6 of the people that were arrested for vandalism and criminality were from Chicago in Atlanta. So,
but how do we know that to be true, especially from Governor Kemp? I'm going to say this as that is actual facts, is that they have, I'm going to get the exact, I got a word from someone that works at Emory University in the case studies I'm very close with, and this person sent me an email that they have paid, they have paid for Emory University $181,000 to do a case study from January 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020 on police militarization. Why during the time of COVID do they need Emory to do a case study on police militarization? So what I need to have an understanding is that were we case studies yesterday? And were they provoked yesterday for this case study?
Okay, that's interesting. If we're going to move, that's an interesting thing to contemplate and to talk about. But while he's out there on the street, Mr. Strickland, what are you seeing right now? It looks like it's kind of it looks like it's not much going on. That they've cleared the streets downtown and they're getting ready to put in that
9 o'clock
curfew at 9 o'clock, which is about 1 hour.
Yeah, so I had a couple of things that I did want to say. First and foremost, we're in every school in the city of Atlanta. We're in schools in DeKalb County. We're in juvenile court. It's a lot of people who are out here with our youth. in our program, just here in Atlanta, we have over 25 children in our program that are murdered each and every year, right? So it's a lot of people out here who are organizing youth and who are speaking to youth, and it's a lot of youth who do have a lot to say, and it's a lot of youth who we do take down to City Hall and different things of that nature. So we do have that impact to get our youth, mobilize our youth, and get power to our youth. I just want to, I don't want that to be missed in this message. It's a lot of times that people are doing things when it's a big issue that's going on, but these things had to be done every single day. Like I said, we have 25 children in our programs that are killed every year. I'm sitting around kitchen tables at 3 and 4 in the morning. We got youth right here walking down the street right now because they're here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got youth down here.
No mask. Not one mask.
You know what? So I want to say one thing, right? I get what you're saying about the mask. I do. But in the city of Atlanta, 94 out of every 100 Black males who were born poor would die poor. They would die never getting out of poverty. So when we're looking at Corona and we're looking at all of these issues that we're going through right now, a lot of our people, this isn't new for them. A lot of our people, my family is from the slums of Chicago, biggest projects in the United States, right? I've been robbed by police officers. I've been beaten. I've been kidnapped 3 times. I had a child that was murdered, right? So I get it. Like, yeah, we need masks, but what we need is we need for our people to not be living like third world citizens in this country every single day. So when we're saying that we're looking at them because they're frustrated, a lot of them don't have masks. I missed my flight coming back from Detroit, and I had to catch a train to DC and fly to DC because while I'm being driven back by the city council members, I saw a block where they were outside selling drugs. It was about 40 guys. Not one person had a mask on. I asked the city council member to pull over. I took the box of masks that was left over from where we passed out at, and I asked the guys, could I get them masks? In Maryland, they have an executive order where if you don't have a mask on when you come outside, that's automatically an offense. So I'm telling them, like, look, if you don't have a mask on, the police gonna come over here and bother you. These people, they're driving down in army tanks. These people, they don't have a stimulus package. They're not getting unemployment. So if they were struggling to feed their family on a regular day, what you think is going on right now for them, right? So they're out here on these blocks because their children are starving. We're giving out baby supplies. You got grown men crying while they're getting the stuff for their babies because they couldn't feed their babies. So yeah, they need masks, but they need the Black community to stand up. How in the world, in a city where you got the richest Black people in the world, do we have 94 out of 100 Black males that were born poor that's gonna die poor? How is that possible, right? I'm standing at my building, and across the street from my building, right here is the glass where they bust out the glass in the hotel. Why you think they bust out the glass in the hotel? They trying to go somewhere so they can have somewhere to go into and sleep. This is across the street from my office, and they bust out glass in the hotel. My office is in the middle of all of this. So we see it every single day. Every day since COVID, it's been like the Walking Dead out here because all you see is homeless people that can't eat. They have nowhere to go. They can't even wash their hands. They can't use the bathroom with dignity. So yeah, they need masks. Yeah, we need to look at some ways to change some stuff, but we need to look at what was going on because when COVID is over and the world opens back up, Black people can't go back to what we used to be. We can't go back to living inside this country like we didn't matter. We can't go back to the fact that this year helped put 21, I think it was 21 families that had homeless children in APS. We helped put them in apartments. And we did that, reached out to the city, reached out to all kinds of people, got no support. So my point is, I hear everything everybody's saying, but this ain't a new epidemic for us. This pandemic barely changed the Black culture, barely. So I hear everything, but it barely changed it. And here goes the parade, I mean, not parade, but here goes the march right here, coming down from the front of our office. And as you can see, police set up everywhere. And here they go coming down the street right here. And if we sit out here long enough, they've been coming down the street with army tanks with police officers. I've never even seen that before. Black army tank looking vehicles with police in it. I'm sorry, I missed most of that. But I just had to get that out. I hear everything we're saying. But we lose 21 of our participants or so every single year. Between, I say, maybe 20 to 25 every year to gun violence, just here in Atlanta. So this is not a new thing that we're dealing with. Like, can anybody explain to me, in the city where we had the highest earned income for African Americans, how in the world is 94 out of 100 African American males born poor going to die still poor? Why aren't we talking about those epidemics? Why aren't we talking about all of this?
Because Atlanta's always been poor. Atlanta's always been a poor city, even going back generations. In the Atlanta typically followed only Newark, New Jersey as the highest rate of poverty in the country. Back in the late 90s, when they had the reforms for the public housing, people criticized that. but that didn't change the poverty statistics in Atlanta. Atlanta has the privately held apartment complexes that cover Southeast, Southwest, Middle West Atlanta have always been poverty stricken. The most of those who have wealth in Atlanta don't live in Atlanta proper. They live in South DeKalb, they live in Gwinnett, they live in Douglas County, they live in North Fulton County. They don't live in Atlanta proper as a city. The city of Atlanta spends an inordinate amount of its budget on parks and recreation, its recreation centers. As a matter of fact, the city of Atlanta hasn't closed any recreation centers. We have what's called centers of hope, where we've tried to bolster recreation activities in the park.
Keith, can you go on mute right quick, please, sir? Thank you.
The province of the county, just like with health concerns. But the city spends a lot of its money and budget on that. Even with that, we don't get the full participation from people in the community to come to the recreation centers and participate in those activities. The city of Atlanta school system, almost every high school is a Title I school, which means it's supplemented by the federal government for its lunch program and other programs. Atlanta has always been a poor city. The mythology of Atlanta, the city too busy to hate, the city of the Black Mecca.
The Black Mecca,
yes,
yeah.
you can come to Atlanta and do well in business in the Atlanta metropolitan area, but the city of Atlanta proper, the only 500,000 people who live in Atlanta that live and work here, they've always been poor. I've lived in Vine City my entire life. I'm 54 years old. I live right next door to the Bluff. I've grown up. I'm less than a mile from the Atlanta University Center, and people who lived here have always been working people, working class people. They've always been teachers, doctors. I mean, you've had a mixed bag here in Atlanta that live in the inner core. And when people could live and move after the civil rights movement and move where they wanted to, those who had money did, and they left the core of the city.
Hey, Mr.
Those who remained have been working.
No, yeah. I actually wanted to bring up a good point that you brought up, Keith, in regards to, I wanted to bring up a point and have Ms. Longworth or Dr. Stevens talk about that. Is that contributing to this sense of fatalism that seems to permeate our young people, like they have an indifference to the ramifications of going out and being in crowds and possibly.
1 second, I think Keith's trying to interview somebody on the street.
Oh, okay,
yeah, I
okay.
am. Thank you so much. I had a young group that was standing out here, and they're actually passing out masks to the people who are walking up and down the street. I wanted to give them a chance to let them speak. And I also want to say something, Councilman Bond. The Center of Hopes are closed. They're only food distribution places right now. So our recreational centers are closed for our youth right now. I did want to say that because
they're closed because of the pandemic, but they're not.
Yeah, they're
shut
not closed.
down.
Yeah, they weren't closed down before the pandemic. Yes, sir. But hold on 1 second. I just want to give a voice to, because we're talking about young leaders, so we have some right here. Do you guys want to introduce yourself and talk about what you're doing?
My name's Cecilia. I'm here because I believe in the movement. I believe that we can bring love, harmony, and peace. And by doing that, we decided today to bring waters to the group of people, try to kind of diffuse. And we understand the compassion and the hurt and pain, but us here, like-minded and young, we believe that we can heal each other with showing love
to each other,
to our community.
Because if they won't show it to us, we have to show it to each other. So my name is Sierra, and I'm here today because I know we're angry, we're done, and people are going to use their emotional brain tonight and act irrationally. So we want to be there to provide love and support and protection to our people on the front lines. We have masks, we have waters, We have words of encouragement. We have snacks. We even have milk in case our men and women get made. So we're here to nurture our people while they fight for what they believe in.
You have anything you want?
Yeah, my name is Dejanay. I also agree with everything that Tierra and Cece said. We're just here to really spread love and just to be a vessel for others and be there for others and hold space during this time of need, because a lot of things have been going on throughout the past couple of months to where emotionally a lot of people are feeling a lot of different things, and it's hard, especially when you constantly see people who are like you getting murdered for nothing. It's literally a modern day lynching, and enough is enough, but at the same time there's better and smarter ways to go about it, and we just need to be more strategic.
We need to be more strategic, and I think the best strategy is to use our dollars, to use our money.
Yeah.
You know, these people thrive off of our money. And instead of burning your buildings, we should stop buying your buildings, you know, and spend money on our own people and in our own economy. So
invest within our own circle.
Invest in ourselves instead of investing in them. You know, there's so many other things we could do outside of violence that'll speak volume and make moves.
So guys, I want to do this, right? We keep saying that we're not training our young leaders and we don't have young leaders. If y'all don't mind, can y'all come in our office? We have a city councilman here. We have people who are established. I'm going to get them and I'm going to get their information. We're going to find out what they need. And instead of us talking about what we're not doing, this is an opportunity. We see them out here. We see them. They're passing out masks. We say that the problem is that our people are going to die because it's going to pass and the COVID is going to spread. We're saying that we don't have an initiative where our young Black people are actually organized, where clearly we have a group right here that we can start with. And because they're in their own culture, they can spread that throughout their culture. So I'm going to lead by example right now. I'm going to walk y'all into my office. I'm going to get y'all contact, and we're going to do whatever we got to do to support you guys, get y'all the training you need. Because what's the point in talking about it if we're not on the streets doing it? What's the point? So if you don't mind, we're going to go into my office right now. We're going to get their contact, and we're going to help them.
Hey, Keith, where are they from?
Excuse me, ladies, where are you guys from?
We're all from Seattle,
Washington. We're all from Seattle, Washington. We're all from Seattle.
But I want to say this. I have a lot of young leaders right here in Atlanta, right here. I mean, the city councilman, you know me. You know, you guys named a week after us in the city of Atlanta. So this is what I'm talking about. While we're talking about violent marches, this is what it's like. It's not violent. You got people blowing and showing solidarity while they're marching up the street. This is what Atlanta is doing. There's nothing violent about this. This is what it looks like in Atlanta right now. Love. This is what I'm talking about. There's nothing violent about this. They blocking the street while they march, and they showing love while they do it.
They say there's 1,000 people down at CNN Center right now.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sir.
They say there's 1,000 people down at CNN Center right now.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. They were still blowing the horns. I can't hear you.
They say there are 1,000 people in front of CNN right now.
I'm 1 block away. I can walk over. I'm gonna get their contact information. My office is 1 block away from the CNN. But we keep saying we need to organize our young Black leaders. So I'm gonna start right now. So I'm gonna bring them into my office. I'm gonna get their contact. And City Council, I'm hoping that you'll help us. Nice to meet you, man. I'm hoping that you'll help us put them in a position to where we can actually start mobilizing our community. Hey, hold on 1 second. I got an NBA player. I got 2 NBA players who were here with me that I wanted to also introduce. I got 2 NBA players too who I wanted to introduce. Guys, if you can't introduce yourself, let them know who you are.
How y'all doing? Josh Powell here, 17-year retired professional basketball player. I'm here with Andre Sandoval. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing all right. What'd you say?
What brings everybody down?
I mean, I'm from here, so I'm definitely down to support the city and do it in the right way. You know what I mean? So I just like being a part of good things, but doing it the right way. You know what I mean? So my heart was heavy how everything went last night. So I connected with Keith so we can come together and just, you know, do what we do.
Super. We appreciate you here rolling out.
Yes, sir. Thank you
so much for your leadership. We need you.
Thank you, King. Appreciate that.
And it is a rebellion. It is not a riot. It is a rebellion.
Right.
Rebellion. We need to make sure that they don't paint the wrong picture of our community standing up for itself.
Right. Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
So what sort of activities are y'all getting into right now? If you,
See money.
oh, okay, they got to go. But that's good to see. It's good to see professional athletes, current and former, being a part of trying to come up with solid solutions and viable solutions to some of these problems. Okay. No, but I wanted to talk about the point I was bringing up before. He made that important distinction and interviewed those people. Is that Ms. Lone Wolf and Dr. Stevens? Is that why so many people have this like a laissez-faire attitude? Because there's such a sense of fatalism permeating amongst our young people that it's already set in stone. I'm not going to make it to 30. I don't care. I don't. I'm born poor. I'm poor now. I'm going to die poor, so I might as well have fun. Ms. Lone Wolf, I'd like you to answer that question as well. Is that? Do you get a sense of that as to why there's so many people are not abiding by the mandates and the protection suggestions?
I've talked to several young people, and I've actually started collecting some data from the 20 to 40-year-old age group. And the sentiment of the younger population generation is that, well, the most common answer is we all have to die sometime. So it's suicide. It's a sense of fatalism as far as like their current just socioeconomic conditions, health inequities. There are so many things that existed before this pandemic. We know the killings were already happening. So when you have a sense of fatalism and no one is stepping up to alleviate the things that you're feeling, this is the result. They're going to go out there. They don't care if they're positive or not. If they can infect somebody else, I mean, that's the last thing they're thinking about. So they're hurting and they're numb. And so for them, dying is the last thing that's on their mind right now. They just want to feel something. So when they're out here doing these things, the rebellion, just being around crowds, and you can just see the energy. That's exactly what's happening. It's a sense of fatalism. It's a sense of, it's almost suicide. So how do we turn that around? Like, how do you pour into someone that at this point doesn't want to be filled? They don't want to hear it. They don't want to wear the mask because it's like, if I die, at least I can say I died during a pandemic protesting. This is, my last words.
Mr. Longford.
Ms. Lone Wolf, could you answer that as well? Did you hear the question that I presented?
Yes, I just think that, what Dr. Kenyatta said, I agree with her. I also understand that we're dealing with, this generation is a fearless generation. And I think all of us right now, when it comes down to COVID and the governor opening it up prematurely, we as the older generation or those that are talking to young people, letting them know that we cannot continue to be sacrificial lambs, whether it's with a virus or whether it's when we are up against this system. We cannot allow our people to continue to be sacrificial lambs.
I see. And then Councilman Bond, when you hear this kind of talk from the study from Stevens and you hear Ms. Lone Wolf, who's out there among the people every day, how does that make you feel? And do you have a response to that, sir?
Well, I'm extremely disturbed by it because I don't believe that the machinations of government is addressing fully the needs of our community. I've experienced it with my own family members. I've had, my aunt died from COVID-19 last week of March. I have relatives who are young who are oblivious to the dangers still, even though they've lost their loved one. They don't feel that it can happen to them. They don't feel affected by what goes on in the community. And I think that it's time for policies and the apparatus of government to change to address those policies. I mean, part of, I think is part of the experience is people's lack of education or the type of education that they receive from Atlanta Public Schools or the Fulton County school system here or school systems across Georgia. They're lacking. They're only addressing the basic needs. You know, when I was in high school, it seemed like it was, you know, just yesterday. But when I was in school, people got a more well-rounded education. I think not everybody wasn't expected that everybody go to college, and everybody wanted to go to college, but they received technical training, skills training, so they can support themselves. In addition to, you know, a college track. You know, when we got when our society in large, the last 15, 18 years got obsessed. Oh, everybody's going to college bound. We're going to do the charter school thing, and instead of developing people's well-rounded skill sets for the meeting people where they are so they can support themselves. I think we got away from enabling people and equipping people to be able to support themselves, to have an option to life on the street or the occupations of the street. And I think we need to get back to that. I think we need to get back, you know, perhaps, you know, 8-hour school day is not what we need. Maybe we need a 10-hour school day to supplement. You know, we obviously need the lunch and food programs, because that's why the city of Atlanta is doing that in their recreation centers, in addition to what the school system provides. There has to be a rethinking of what government for the people and by the people ought to be doing for the people. And I think it's time to have that conversation.
We're going to do last words because the curfew is about to start. Can we start with Mrs. Longwood?
Yes, so thank you once again, Rolling Out, for having me on. And I apologize for coming on so late. So I know there was so much meat of the conversation I may have missed. And all of you all, it's great to be on this panel with all of you all and doing the work that you all are doing. Moving forward, I think it's really, really important for us to look at this opportunity to strengthen our organizing, strengthen whatever it is that you're doing. I always say there's different positions in revolution, but we need to strengthen that. We need to be consistent in everything that we are already doing. And if you're not doing something, find an organization or start an organization within righteousness that's about the liberation of our people for freedom, justice, and equality. You can follow me at Queen Yonajah, Queen YONASDA. And I have two organizations, Indigenous Peoples Movement, as well as Hip Hop, the #4 Foundation. So you can follow me. You can also be a part of either one of those organizations as well. And then I'm all about coalition building, and it's all about us. What are we going to do from here in order for us to not see what we are seeing right now in regards to police killing us? And how long are we going to continue to drop the ball after every single time police continue to kill us? So I think it all goes down to us coming, organizing, being stronger together. And that's basically it. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Okay,
Thank you so much for rolling.
Absolutely. And just say your Instagram one more time before you leave. Say it slower because you went kind of fast. I didn't get
Sorry.
Right.
Sorry. So my name is, it looks like Yonajah, but it's Yonajah. It's Queen YONASDA. We're having also Gwinnett, Pleasant Hill Road, June 7th. We're having a rally there and a rally there, June 7th, Pleasant Hill Road in Gwinnett County. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, so I guess my last words are we need to safely strategize. I mean, that's important. We need to educate everyone that wants to be out in the streets as far as like having masks. You can still protest and practice social distancing. And we just need to be able to empower ourselves so that we can be alive to fight another day. Because at this rate, that's not going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because we can't build for the future not here. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Mr. Strickland, can you give us the last word before we sign off for the day?
Okay, for first thing I want to say for my last word is this is our future right here. We a lot of times talk amongst each other, but we don't involve them in the conversation. We kept saying how we don't have them, they're not strategizing. They don't know how to social distance. They don't know how to lead properly. I just went out on the street and just found a group that we clearly see are doing the work. We can go outside of our doors. We can't reach them. We have programs, like I said, in all of APS schools. We have programs in juvenile court. We have programs in the communities. We have programs where I pull up in trap houses and I go to neighborhoods that a lot of times we look at as that's too bad of an area. If we won't reach people where they are, we can't expect for them to come to us. Because I remember when I was in the streets and I was selling drugs, when I was homeless at 14 and 15 years old, nobody cared. And because nobody cared about my position and my situation, why did I care later about theirs? You get what I'm saying? So if we're not willing to reach people where they are, if we're not willing to do what we talk about, like Councilman Bond, I can call you after this. We can come up with a strategy. If we want to do work, I'm happy. I'm here. As you see, wherever y'all told me to go, I'm going. We need to see a protest, I'm going to find a protest. We need to see youth, I'm going to find youth. Whatever we need to do, let's talk about it, then do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not spend so much time where we're sitting in offices talking to each other. Like, the problem is in the streets. Truth be told, the reason why I was willing to travel the country is because I made a decision. My life, my one life, is not as important as saving thousands and millions of their lives, right? So if I get sick again, if I did have in the past, I'm okay with that as long as they have a future. Because I've lived a great life. You guys have lived a great life. It's them who we need to make a place for. And we can't go back to what the African-American community or the Black and brown community looked like pre-COVID. That's not a win. Yes, ma'am, come on.
Also, not just our generation, because I even feel like you, I feel like our defector. I have kids, so there's children under us too now. And I don't want them living in a world like this.
Exactly.
I don't want them living in a world like this. But I don't want them to suffer like I did or like we did.
Yes.
So
We're feeling a lot of pain right now, and none of us have kids, but we want to prepare the future for when I do have kids.
For our future husbands, our future children, our
and
future
their children's
sons.
children.
Yes.
And we don't have the a lot of money for supplies, but we did what we could today, and we're gonna keep doing what we can because we believe that there is a bigger purpose, and I'm ready to fight that strong fight with compassion and love and unity, and showing people that we care and we feel your pain. We're just like you, but
there's another approach.
There's another way. There's another
we
way.
don't know what that is.
We have no excuse for saying that we don't have young people who are willing. They're saying they don't have a lot, but they spent what they had on masks and on supplies. They're saying that they don't know exactly which path that they need to go down, but they're wanting to. They came in here. They wrote down their needs. They wrote down their numbers. They wrote down their contacts. These are our soldiers right here. It's no excuse.
Let's
You
get
have a
another
platform.
message. We don't want unsafe soldiers. We don't want soldiers to be affected by people who are next to them without masks. I don't think there's ever a doubt at Rolling Out, given our commitment to our community. We respect the young ladies there. We love you, but we want you to be safe. I don't want the experience that you have to put your life at risk. There's a curfew.
I think all of us are trying to be safe though, because contrary to y'all's belief, I have heard multiple times you guys spoke about how people weren't wearing masks.
Yeah, just about everybody. Yeah, just about everybody at the march yesterday had on a mask. I wanted to say that also.
But they're not social distancing, and a mask does not absolve you from being infected with the virus. It just creates mental.
However, how long are we going to be able to social distance?
Okay, can I say something?
And also, when we went to Piedmont Park, they playing flag football, they're playing kickball. Nobody went to Piedmont Park, which was 99% Caucasian, and nobody said you're not social distancing. So can we at least have the same standard? Can we have the same judgment? Can we say the same thing to those families as we're saying to ours?
We have.
I've been raising that issue for the last 2 months about the park.
Anybody in the movement.
When we were at Piedmont Park, the police were right there. And
No,
they
but
still didn't send anybody home.
I don't think anybody, if you heard Tamika when she talked about the incidents in New York, she was definitely talking about the disparity in the data as it related to African American men being arrested in the Bronx and in Brooklyn versus those in the East Village. I mean, it's part of the movement. It's already part of the discussion. What I'm sharing.
The entire country was built on that, though. The entire country is not built to provide for us. We were never a person at the beginning of this country. We were property. So of course, nothing is going to be built for us to survive. Of course, they're always going to come to our neighborhoods and arrest more people in our neighborhoods because they don't want. All the police is an extension of the slave patrol. Any runaway slaves, that's what they would go do. They would all the killing that's been going on. The only reason why we're so riled up about it now is because people are finally seeing it. None of this has changed. Slavery has been going on and on and on and on. The school to prison pipeline is a thing. That is modern day slavery. I literally went to LSU. I would see the slaves working on the street as if it was slavery.
We're hurting and we don't have an outlet. Right now, we are in so much pain. Okay. So much pain.
Can I ask a question?
Feel free. And I know we got to close out. She wants to close out with a question.
Do you guys know anything about when the defects, when the parents get to see their kids again? Because I haven't seen my kids since March 11th. So when is that going to happen? Why does we get to meet like this? Why are they allowing people to meet so close and go to stores and things like that, but I can't see my kids? Can you guys know anything about that? Because there's thousands of parents right now not being able to see their kids.
There's social distancing. There's way bigger fish to fry.
Well, I will say this. I will follow up on that. I will. I have some programs, defects, and I will follow up. Like I create some programs for WIC and for defects, like they're my clients. So I'll reach out as soon as we get done with this. I'll reach out to some of my people and see what we can do.
Thank you. Yeah. How can best people get in contact with you, Mr. Strickland?
What was that? Our organization is makingthetransition.org. So that's makingthetransition.org. That's our website. And our office number is 404-576-8828. Our Instagram is Making the Transition. So really everything Making the Transition. But I'm very thankful to be able to speak on this platform. I'm thankful for all the work that each one of us are doing. I may seem combative, but like I said, I sit at those kitchen tables and I talk with those families when they lose their children. So I'm not combative towards you guys. I'm combative towards a broken system that needs to be fixed. And I know we all are doing everything we can. So I'm so thankful for each and every one of you.
I have no problem with your disposition. We need your perspective.
And we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilman Bond.
Well, just thank you to Rolling Out for having this forum. Thank you for all the participants for the work that you're doing. I'm committed to do whatever I can personally to assist any one of us or anyone who is willing to advance our movement. I want to give everybody my number and email address. My city cell phone is 404-274-8111. My personal cell phone is 678-886-2286. My email address is mbond, that's MBOND, at atlantagA.gov. My office number is 404-330-6770. I am available, and please, we all need to put our shoulder to the grindstone to do more to help advance the cause of our people. We got to do it. The movement isn't over. The Civil War ended 152 years ago, and we're still fighting it. We're still fighting to be free. We're still fighting to be equal in this society, and the fight isn't over. And I think there was a sense in the 70s after the crest of the civil rights movement that maybe things are equal and fine and all the same, but that's not true. And of course, it's not true. Freedom has to be won and re-won over and over again. And so, we have to be committed to that, and we have to have that level of expectation so that we don't have the subsequent disappointment that might follow and the disillusionment that we're seeing today. You know, we have to be about this all of our lives, and every generation has to be brought up to talk, to fight, to be equipped to pursue this freedom until we all are truly free. And so anyone on the call, anyone on the Zoom, if you need me, I'm there, you know, as a resource and willing to participate and do whatever it is that I can do to the limit of all of my ability to do so. And thank you again, Munson, for putting this together. Rolling Out does a tremendous job across the country, keeping people informed. So I want to thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Terry?
Yeah, I'm very encouraged by what I've heard tonight. I was both inspired, infused with some energy. Hearing, you know, I have no problem with Strickland's disposition. We need to hear different perspectives, different temperaments, different. This is a kaleidoscope of different types of people who bring something to the table. So I was educated by Dr. Stevens and Mr. Strickland, you know, Councilman Bond. So I'm very encouraged moving forward that we're going to begin to make lasting change rather than temporary, something that goes away after a couple of weeks. So I feel encouraged by this discourse this evening.
Well, I want to thank all of the panelists for coming, Councilman Bond, Dr. Stevens, Dr. Strickland, and Dr. Shropshire, Terry Shropshire, that is the first King James. We all do not have the same lens as a community. We are not homogenous at all. Our safety should be our primary. Our health and public safety has to be our primary at this moment. It is the number one goal for all of us to live past this moment. So for me, at Rolling Out, I think all of us want the young people to be themselves, but be safe.
Absolutely.
I don't need you to stay at home. I need you to do what you need to do and be in your own movement, in your own life at this moment, because there's a rebellion and you want to participate. Mm-hmm. But I need you to participate smart, to obey the law, and to understand that there are lots of tricksters setting traps for you in the streets to mire your image of Dr. Martin Luther King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Malcolm X, and you are our future Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and every other movement that has occurred. We're depending on you. So I have nothing to say but Godspeed, and for all of us, be safe. Because this pandemic, you let your guard down, it's the wrong moment. I'm Munson Steve, this is Rolling Out News. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and God bless you and good night.
Good night. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Doctor.
Good night.
Good night. Call you.